Thanks so much for sitting in for our session. I'm joined today by SG Lee, who is the CEO and founder of Toss, the popular payment app in South Korea. So Toss launched in 2015 as a peer-to-peer payments app. 12 million registered users now. It's raised nearly $200 million to date, valued at $1.2 billion, and it is the first and still the only fintech unicorn in South Korea. So SG, thanks so much for taking the time to chat with us today. To start, can you just give us an intro of Toss, kind of the business model and kind of just an overview of the company?
Thank you for having me. Yes, Toss actually started as a P2P payment services, just like a Venmo. But we are so lucky to be in the position so that we can just fulfill all the voice that was existing in the Korean fintech industry. Well, even despite of like global number 10 GDP and economic states, Korea doesn't really have a really proper financial services such as Credit Karma, Mint, or whatsoever. So we are really lucky to have, we're really able to fill all those opportunities there. So right now, Toss is more of Venmo plus Credit Karma plus Mint kind of services. So we offer full suites of financial. So when user are in need of anything related to finance, user can just open up the Toss and they just can solve what they're in need of. So right now we are 12 million. Most of them are monthly active, and they just access to the app more than 50 times per month. And monthly transaction volume right now is about 3 billion USD, and it is growing at a pace of 10 to 15% every month. So, and right now we are covering 24% of total population that existing in South Korea, and we soon to launch our service in Vietnam market. So yeah, we're trying to be a mobile branch for every financial institution that we made a partnership with, so that they can have a really good financial savvy users through the digital channels. Yep.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's not just 12 million registered users, it's 12 million registered users out of 51 million people total in South Korea. That's pretty good odds. Can you talk a little bit, you touched on it there, the overview of kind of the kind of fintech market, and how it kind of does compare to the US, because maybe people aren't as familiar.
Yes. Actually, we have a very similar financial dynamics like US rather than China. The Korean financial market is quite saturated and it's quite matured. So like if you just see the loan market, the Korean loan market is number 4 in global, and Korea e-commerce market size is number 4 in global. So if you're just considering the land mass and the population of 50 million, it doesn't look like really big market, but it's really saturated and a really matured market. And 75% of the population has some kind of loans, whether it's a mortgage or unsecured loans. So it's a huge market, and we do have a same FICO system just like in US. So we do have 2 credit bureaus dominating the market. So almost the same. But the thing is a little bit different, because as I already said, none of the financial services such as Credit Karma or Mint or Stripe ever existed before the Toss. So we are the first one who introduced free credit score management, free P2P money transfer, those kind of services for the first time. So, if you see these kind of dynamics in market saturation, it is really hard for you to educate your customers and users' behavior, because most of their behavior is still in the offline. So we are true believers of that we can make a drastic shift in a short period of time from offline habits to the online. Right now, more than 90% of loan is executed through the offline branch. I think that's crazy compared to US especially, but we think that can be online, and it's going to unlock a lot of market opportunity right away. And the thing is, and also I just want to highlight that the regulatory easing is very drastic. The regulatory bodies are trying to deregulate like innovatively. So it is really good timing for you to, if you're going to start the fintech business, it's good to be in South Korea. And also it's way better for you to just benchmark all of the great players in global, because none of that is existing in Korea. So you can just learn it from the global and just take it and just launch it in Korea. So yeah, that kind of things are
A little melting pot, right? You get to pick
Yeah.
all the good things from all the other countries.
True, it's possible. Yeah, that's what we're really aiming for.
Sure, sure. So as an app, you start off with a specific service, right? Peer-to-peer payments, and then you kind of expand into kind of other areas, right? I think, 25 services now, you guys?
30 services.
Yeah, so it's a similar kind of trajectory that a lot of US fintechs are making as well, right? Starting in a specific area and then kind of branching out. From your perspective, what was kind of the strategy as you look to expand beyond peer-to-peer payments?
Yes. I think there has been a unbundling versus bundling kind of strategy comparison to 1 or 2 years ago, but I think that's not right anymore. I think every financial services should collide into one app, like one super app that's going to solve all of the financial needs that user have. So it's better for you to have a really high engagement and high frequency usage rather than just, if you just see the loans or insurance and all that, it doesn't happen every day. But compared to that, P2P payments or merchants payments or even checking a credit score, that happens more often than just get a loans, right? So, Robinhood, the investments happens really often. Like you check the market situation like 7 times per day. So what I'm saying is, it's better in strategic wise. I think it's better just dominate the use cases of the high frequency, and after that you can just add up a lot of services that can be useful for the users. And if you collide all that, then user will going to perceive that app or the services as an ultimate app that can solve everything. Like if you're just want to checking your balance or money transfer, or you're in need of loans and all that, you can just check there, and because you use it every day and you trusted that service for a very long time, it obviously will going to give you a good conversion there. So yeah, I think the becoming only a one app that solves everything is very makes sense as time goes by, because I'm betting on that the financial institution will going to be not successful about making their digital or mobile presence at all, because of their organization issue and all those stuff. And but still, operating offline branch is going to cost too much. So the financial institution will going to face a high CAC problem, like high customer acquisition cost. To lowering that, they need some really good extension channel or the distribution channel that they can utilize in the digital form or the mobile, and which is really good at from startups or IT companies.
Sure.
That they can provide a lot of really financial savvy, great traffic to the financial institutions, and as a result, I think the people will going to just a non-financial institution app such as Toss or Venmo or Robinhood, and in there they will going to find that their partner to financial institutions products such as loans and insurance. Then, so there is a separation between suppliers and channels, and it's going to be in that way.
Is that how you can avoid getting spread too thin as you look to expand? So you pick that one area, right, where you want to concentrate and you feel like you can really dominate a high frequency area, and then as you expand in those other areas, is it with those partnerships with some of the traditional players, or how do you kind of avoid, as you kind of expand the business, not getting spread out too thin?
Sure, I think it's about, so in order to achieve this kind of super app, like for example, we are offering over 30 different product lines across the merchants, payments, transactional services, and insurance, and investments, and loans, and all that, which is critical for you to have a really different working principle and team organization. For example, Toss have 20 different teams, consist of 8 to 10 person. So they and each and every one is highly aligned, but it also loosely coupled. So each and every one decide the product's destiny. Like they decide their marketing budget, they decide where this product should go forward. They don't really report it to me. I mean, oftentimes I always get shocked about the speed of innovation that we made in our team, because they don't really share the information the product will going to change in a certain way. But in a sense, by doing so, we can just operate all those 30 over services really rapidly without losing any spark, really a great spark, and still moving fast. And also, each and every services has a really good quality. So having this kind of really different, really rather than hierarchy or top-down kind of teams, having this very autonomous team, it's really critical for my point of view. So, well, we last year, we launched over 100 services, and more than half of it just killed because it wasn't loved by the users and it wasn't have any code retention or so. So I think the speed of innovation is one of the critical thing for you to do. And in order to keep up that speed, you need to have a really highly coupled, highly aligned, loosely coupled team. And also, I think you just need to focus on the consumer's problems and needs rather than making out of something you want.
Yeah. I think that's an issue probably a lot of founders might have, right? The product they want to launch as opposed to the product that people want. You touched on it earlier, the decision to go into Vietnam. Can you talk a little bit about those plans?
Sure, right. So right now, out of 50 million people in Korea's population, right now we have 24% coverage, but we think the saturation points will going to hit at somewhere around 25 million because half of the Korean people are using some kind of mobile banking app or the credit card app, even though it's cumbersome. So I think the 25 million MAU is quite something that we can get with it's a low hang for us. But we're trying to keep it up our growth pace. So in order to do that, we just want to find out a really good problems that we can solve in global market. And we saw the Vietnam market is really good. So the only thing that we are really laser focused on is just a product market fit. I think the finance is really tricky because there is no ideal one experience that solves everyone's problems. Like if you see the Messenger or if you see the Google search, there is a just optimal and best experience of search results or the Messenger experience. But there's nothing there in finance because everyone's financial life is so fragmented. Everyone is different. Like for example, I only use one credit card. And the most matter to me, choosing that credit card is just design. But other guys using 4 different credit cards because they want mileage and all that benefits from the credit card company. So everyone's needs are so fragmented and different. So when we go to the global market, such as Vietnam market, we know nothing about that local market. So instead of launching just the current product of TOS right away into the Vietnam, we just want to find a really great product hook that we can see the great viral growth. So we're trying to find a really great product hook or anything that can show a viral growth in the context of finance. So we just focusing on the products, and we think we found one, and so we are going to launch in a couple of months.
Does that come through customer feedback? Does it come from research? Because I think it's an important thing to understand as we're seeing a lot of the European digital banks kind of migrate across the Atlantic into the US. They're kind of coming up with similar issues of understanding that the US customer base is very different from the European customer base. So just in general, what advice or what would be the most important thing that when it comes to a fintech that's looking to expand beyond its country of origin?
So a lot of global fintech unicorns and companies are trying to launch their own product lines, even without changing that much. Just they launch it in the new area like Australia or the US. But I don't think that strategy will going to work beyond at certain points, because I think the Europe and US have kind of similar problems and similar needs in the market, so that strategy can fit. But I think that at least Asian market is totally different. And if you see the Asian market, Korea is much more like Japan, and China is much more like Southeast Asia. So strategy should be totally different. But just going out there and launching the status quo products will not going to succeed. So I think to understand the local needs and problems of the finance is critical. And instead of just launching the current app, you should be like making a new app totally, for example, to solve those local problems. I think that's critical, and that's where we're really laser focusing on.
Sure. Reaching unicorn status, does that change the way you operate as a business? I mean, I saw out in the lobby there's a literal unicorn statue out there that I think people are taking pictures with. As a CEO and a founder, when you reach that, there's certainly more attention given to you. Does it change the way you operate as a business at all?
Well, personally, I don't feel that way because the financial market is so huge. So I think the becoming a fintech unicorn doesn't really give you any kind of proof, I guess. So compared to retail or compared to media market, the financial service market is single most biggest market in any country, and so I think the becoming a fintech unicorn is kind of you just started. Kind of sense. And in the context of ecosystem of the finance world, people just see the unicorn is not that, I don't know. I mean, so personally and also as a company, it doesn't really change.
Sure. What about kind of looking ahead now? Just how do you see, as a company, how do you see the future of the fintech market?
Yeah, I think so as I already mentioned earlier briefly, I think there will be a strong tendency towards separation between product suppliers, such as banks and financial institutions. I'm expecting them. It's a dangerous thing to say, but it's going to be much more like factory for them, like OEM factory. Like if you do have a same FICO number, then you will going to get offered the same interest rates from any bank that you are, because your risk profile is exactly the same. So the thing is, except branding, it is getting harder for any finance institution to differentiate themselves from others. As a result, it's going to be a much more demand-driven market rather than supply-driven market. And in that cases, any players, those who grab the last mile of the users, such as Toss or the Credit Karma or Robinhood and all that, Revolut, they will going to have a much stronger power against the financial institution because they became just a factory or just a loan service provider. So I think there will be a separation between channels and the suppliers, and banks and financial institutions still have a chance to become a really dominant distribution channel in the mobile. I think it's a low chance, but it's a whole competition. So I think in coming 3 to 5 years, there will be a strong competition between which distribution channel is the dominant player in this market or not.
Sure.
That war will go on.
Sure. So we're winding down here, and we're going to play a game. I was told it's very popular amongst the crowd, the overrated, underrated. I'm going to share a term or a company with you. We're going to put you on the hot seat, and you're going to tell me if it's overrated or underrated. So first one, Amazon. Overrated, underrated?
I think it's underrated.
Okay.
Because Amazon is still very big, and I heard that they are 40% out of all online transactions in retail. But still, if you see the industry dynamics there, so I see the really interesting statistics before that. If you see the advertised market, 80% of revenue is coming from online already. So it's kind of fully online, online-wise. But if you see the retail, only 40% of the market is through the revenue is coming from online. Still, 60% of the revenue come from, I don't know, Costco or Walmart or something. So I think there's a lot of room to grow in terms of offline versus online. So I think as Amazon is dominating the online transactions, if the market number of the online 40% out of total retail goes up to 80%, in that case, Amazon can be a way bigger company than status.
Next one, blockchain, distributed ledger technology, overrated, underrated?
I think it's overrated. I see I agree, and I see the innovative features in that. But if there ever be going to be a commercial usable something, it should come out at this time. But it doesn't really so far. So I don't think it's going to be.
Sure. Yeah. Another company you've mentioned a couple of times up here, Credit Karma, overrated, underrated?
In the same sense, it's underrated because Credit Karma is already generating tons of revenue and so profitable, and the company value is over $4 billion. But still, I think the only 32% of the loans are executed through the online right now in U.S. But that number can go up to like 70 to 80% in the 5 or 7 year terms. In that case, the Credit Karma's revenue and the impact that has in the society will go dramatically grow up. And I love the CEO and founder.
I think Ken might be coming up next, so good
really?
job calling him underrated.
Great.
Good job, good call there.
And I love you.
Last one, Kakao, which for those that are unfamiliar, it's a very popular messaging app in South Korea.
Well, I think it's I must say it's overrated because the Kakao has 95% penetration in the market in terms of the messenger, but still they're capable of distributing, engaging users. I think it's doesn't meet the expectation of the market. So there's a lot of room to grow for Kakao, but current performance is not matching the market. That's my personal view.
Sure. Well, SG, thank you very much for taking the time.
Thank you.
And please, before you give a round of applause to SG and stick around for our next session, which is Andy Sewer of Yahoo Finance.